my superstars. It's the Star Warrior horse here. Back in December, I put out a community post requesting your BreyerFest 2025 predictions. Let's just say when I try to predict the last BreyerFest, my speculations flopped. Therefore, I am putting the burden on you this time around because, like a mature adult, I deflect responsibility. But honestly though, I thought to myself, why reinvent the wheel? Read what others have to say about this coming BreyerFest and see if their predictions turn out to be true. From what we currently know about BreyerFest 2025 so far, your predictions already look very promising. I argue you're more qualified for this job than I am. I'm fired, you're hired. So without further ado, let's dive in. Connolly Sanford 9526 wrote, I think it would be really cool if there were re-releases of really iconic vintage models, but in the modern paint styles. I would also love to see a limited edition of Endo the Blind Horse and portraits of horses from many different disciplines like they have been highlighting on the BreyerFest blog. I'm hoping to go in person for the first time this year. That would be amazing. There is always at least one special run model on an older mold, but in a modern paint style. Breyer hasn't released that horse yet, but it should be coming soon. As for Endo the Blind, I would have loved to have seen him as a portrait model this year. The rest of the limited edition portrait models have been announced for this year. However, Breyer hasn't announced the regular run portrait models yet. Will he make it to the regular run lineup? I don't know. If he does, he could still make a guest appearance at BreyerFest. I'm crossing my fingers, but I'm not necessarily holding my breath. Breyer had the perfect opportunity to make a portrait model of him for last year's BreyerFest, and the theme for that year was Against All Odds. Also, I hope you're able to go to BreyerFest in person this year. As someone who has done both the online and in-person experiences, the latter is definitely the best if you can do it. If you are a model horse enthusiast, you have to go to BreyerFest in person at least once in your life. I am also holding out for an in-person BreyerFest experience this year, in which case I'm hoping to make a video about it. Coyote Clockwork Studios 3140 wrote, I just really want some colorful horses. Palomino Roan, Reverse Dapple. Seems like the more complicated colors are reserved for the auction models. You are technically correct, but I would almost assume that Palomino Roan would be a pretty easy color to paint. Maybe I'm off the mark, but it seems to me like Palomino Roan has basically the same recipe as a Bay Roan or a Blue Roan, just with the Palomino base. I like what you're thinking. I would love to see a Palomino Roan Breyer. TS Treasure Toy 6673 wrote, I think that the surprise horse will be on a vintage mold. I really hope it isn't, but it probably will be. And I think we'll see modern molds with vintage colors and vintage molds with modern colors. The last time Breyer did a surprise horse on a vintage mold was back in 2009. If it were on a vintage mold, it would probably be something very iconic. I'm thinking something like Huckleberry Bay or Proud Arabian Mare. Then again, it's possible but not probable. Speaking of colors and molds, we currently have one special run on a newer mold with a semi-vintage color. That is To the Ties That Bind Us. He's on the silver mold, which is semi-modern, but he's in a Wedgwood color, which is considered technically vintage color. At the same time, he does have a modern design on his croup, which is analogous to an Appaloosa blanket, but totally out of the box. I'm also wondering what the vintage mold special run is going to be like. Purely Model Horses wrote, I feel like along the same line as the anniversary collection. Perhaps we'll see iconic Breyer molds featured, the kind that immediately pop into your head if someone says Breyer horse. Perhaps molds like the Fighting Stallion, Silver, Ethereal, Big Ben, Pam, Othello, and Nokiaa. As for variation colors, potentially something like Diamond Jubilee from 2010. I know the Western Horse will probably be part of the 75th anniversary regular runs, but I still feel like it'd be odd leaving it completely out of this BreyerFest. Perhaps it could become the crystal or a shrunken down resin of some sort, similar to Argento, a shrunken ASB stallion. Well, guess what? You were right about the silver mold so far. I love nearly every mold you just listed. If another one of these molds shows up on the special run lineup, I'll be very content. Speaking of variation colors, I think you're onto something. As I mentioned in one of my videos, even though this isn't a BreyerFest anniversary, this BreyerFest celebrates Breyer's 75th anniversary as a company, and Breyer is going to want to highlight that. What better way to highlight it than doing variations? Maybe we're talking some Wedgwood filigrees. I believe someone might have mentioned a gold variation on the Breyer Collector Club forum. In any case, it's going to be interesting. I think you're right about the Western horse. It wouldn't surprise me if Breyer were to incorporate it into this coming BreyerFest in some way. I can't remember the last year Breyer did a resin for BreyerFest. Then again, this isn't your ordinary BreyerFest. They are celebrating Breyer's 75th anniversary after all. And like you said, it may not be a resin, it could be a crystal. Even if Breyer doesn't make a model of the Western horse, I can imagine a t-shirt with the Western horse on it. If nothing else, I'm almost convinced we're going to see an auction model with the Western horse. Maybe even a raffle model. Farriorette5216 wrote, I know that they always have the premiere models from the previous year as BreyerFest Portrait limited editions and special runs. So I know you're right about not having just vintage molds. Breyer would probably lose a lot of sales if they did just vintage. I'm a little disappointed this year's Christmas horse is on the vintage Big Ben mold. Bought him anyway, laugh out loud. Became a tradition. So far, 3 molds from the previous year's Collectors Club have been utilized for this year's BreyerFest models. One is Halcyon Nightlife, which is the running Welsh cob. The others are Good Times and Great Friends, the new Mustang Mare in Full. We just might get another on the Criollo mold. I know it sounds like a weird way of pronouncing it, but my Spanish teacher from college actually said that the double L in Argentina is actually pronounced as sh. That was a surprise to me because I'm part Latino myself, and I'm like, I always thought the double L was like ja or ya. There you have it, the Criollo. I think you're right when you say that Breyer would lose a lot of money if they solely did vintage molds. They're gonna make models for collectors of every generation. So you're gonna have your new molds, you're gonna have your older molds, and everything in between. We're beginning to see that, and it is so exciting. Solid prediction with respect to the previous year's premiere molds being used for this year's BreyerFest. You were spot on. If any of the molds any of you have mentioned is utilized for another BreyerFest 2025 model, I just might make a YouTube short about it. Each of your BreyerFest predictions were marvelous. I can't wait to see what Breyer does for this coming BreyerFest. That concludes this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Starific content. Thank you for watching, my superstars. Always dream with your eyes open.